Okay, let's just dive right into this. Looking at the artificial intelligence landscape today, it is so easy to feel like we're totally reliving the dot-com bubble. I mean, there are inflated valuations everywhere, endless hype, and just so much noise. But we have to remember that dot-com era, it also gave us companies like Amazon and Google, because right beneath all that froth, there was a massive, genuine structural change happening in technology. So, the whole goal of today's explainer is to cut through those buzzwords and build a grounded, totally practical mental model of AI. We're going to look at what's actually happening, where the real value is hiding, and exactly how this fundamentally changes the way we build products. Here is the roadmap for today. We'll start with the AI evolution, then map out the AI landscape. After that, we'll break down traditional versus generative AI, dive into the AI product mindset, and finally, look at the future of AI. Kicking things off with Section 1, the AI evolution. It's actually kind of funny. People often talk about AI like it was just invented the day ChatGPT launched. But this field is literally decades old. Back in the 1950s, we had symbolic AI, which was basically hand-coded rules for things like those early chess programs. By the 90s, we shifted to machine learning, letting systems actually find patterns in data. Think of your early email spam filters. Then boom, deep learning hits in 2012 for complex image recognition, and finally generative AI in 2017. So the absolutely crucial point here is that these eras didn't just replace each other, they layered on top of each other. Traditional machine learning is still running your credit card fraud detection today perfectly fine, right alongside newer generative AI that's out there doing completely different tasks. So you might be wondering why the sudden massive explosion recently. Well, generative AI's breakout moment was essentially caused by a perfect storm, a rule of three that all converged at once. First up, compute. We realized that GPUs, which were originally just made to render video game graphics, turned out to be unbelievably good at the massive math required for neural networks. And cloud computing made all of this rentable. Second, data. By the 2010s, the internet had generated just unprecedented volumes of text and images to train on. And third, the algorithms. In 2017, there was this famous paper called Attention is All You Need. It introduced the transformer architecture, and that is what really allowed these models to scale beautifully. And honestly, this brilliantly illustrates why we're all here today. AI skills, they're no longer just for the software engineers. They are showing up in marketing, in sales, in ops. You really have to treat AI fluency the same way we treat spreadsheet fluency. It is a baseline expectation today, not some niche specialty. And just to be super clear, every single product decision we're talking about in this explainer concerns narrow AI. That's AI designed to do specific narrow tasks, like translating text or generating an image. We are not talking about general AI, or AGI, which is that hypothetical human-level intelligence you see in sci-fi. We are strictly focused on what is real and useful right now. Moving right along to Section 2, mapping the AI landscape. To really understand the AI industry, it helps to see it stacked up in three very clear layers. At the very bottom, you have the infrastructure layer. This is the heavy lifting, the hardware and cloud compute that everything runs on. Think NVIDIA making the physical chips or AWS hosting the servers. In the middle layer, we have the foundation models. These are the massive, massive brains trained by the major labs. We're talking OpenAI's GPT models or Anthropic's Claude. Finally, sitting right at the top, you have the applications layer. These are the actual products that you and I touch and use every day, built on top of those foundation models. So things like ChatGPT itself or Notion AI. Now, if we zoom in on that top applications layer, things generally split down two paths. On one side, you have horizontal applications. These are general-purpose tools that literally anyone can use across different fields, like a universal writing assistant. On the other side, you have vertical applications. These are hyper-specific tools built directly into one industry's unique workflow. An AI tool built exclusively to review legal contracts, that's a vertical application. And knowing exactly where a tool sits on this map is basically step one to understanding its actual business value. Okay, Section 3, traditional versus generative AI. Listen, this is arguably the single most important distinction in this entire explainer. Confusing these two is literally the most common mistake professionals make right now. Traditional AI predicts, classifies, or, well, it scores things. It looks at a credit card swipe and spits out a score saying, yes, this is fraud, or no, it's not. It is highly deterministic. Generative AI, on the other hand, creates entirely new content that just didn't exist before, like drafting an email from scratch or making a new image. So traditional AI's biggest failure mode is misclassifying something, but generative AI's failure mode, it's hallucination. That's when it generates something that sounds incredibly confident and plausible, but is entirely false. It's kind of like an overly confident intern who just refuses to admit they don't know the answer. So think about an app you use today. Chances are your Netflix recommendation engine is traditional AI, while your automated email drafter is generative AI. They solve completely different problems. All right, let's do a rapid-fire lightning round of the essential terminology you actually need to know. Starting with LLM, which stands for Large Language Model. This is a model trained on a staggering amount of text so it can predict and generate language. But here's the thing. It doesn't read words the way you and I do. It reads and generates in chunks, and those are called tokens. A token is roughly equivalent to a word, or sometimes just a piece of a word. Next up, we have the prompt. That's simply the instruction you give the model to get a response out of it. Easy enough, right? But here is the tricky part, the context window. Think of this as the model's short-term memory. It's the total amount of text the model can see and consider at one single time. If your prompt and your background data exceed that context window, the AI basically gets amnesia. It'll completely forget the beginning of whatever you just told it. We mentioned hallucination earlier, when a model boldly states a confident, plausible-sounding lie. To fight this, engineers use something called RAG, or Retrieval Augmented Generation. It's actually a super clever technique. Before the AI answers, it's forced to look up relevant real-world documents from a trusted database. So it's grounding its response in actual facts instead of just blindly guessing. Finishing up our vocabulary round here, we have fine-tuning. This is when you take a general model and train it just a bit more on a narrow, specific dataset to specialize its behavior. Then there's inference, which is just the technical term for the actual act of the model producing an output for you in real time. And finally, agents. This is absolutely where AI is heading. Systems that don't just spit out text for a human to read, but actually use tools and APIs to take real actions on your behalf. So, with all those layers and all those definitions in our toolkit, we arrive at the million-dollar question. How does AI actually change product management? If you're building software today, how is this really any different from the last 30 years of coding? Which brings us to section 4, the AI product mindset. This is the absolute climax of our explainer because software isn't just rigid lines of explicit code anymore. There are 4 major mindset shifts you have to make. Shift number 1. AI is probabilistic, not deterministic. Look, traditional software is completely deterministic. You hit a button and the exact same thing happens every single time, right? Generative AI does not work like that. The exact same prompt can produce a slightly different output every single time you run it. So as a product builder, you can't just specify exact rigid behaviors anymore. You have to get really comfortable designing and specifying acceptable ranges of behavior. Shift number 2. Building is now evaluation-driven, not just requirements-driven. In traditional software, saying it works is a testable claim. The login button either logs you in or it doesn't. Simple. But how on earth do you know if an AI email drafter works? You have to measure success before you even build the thing. You need an eval set, a benchmark test of known answer questions. This establishes a baseline hallucination rate, which lets you mathematically prove to your team that the AI is actually ready to ship. Shifts 3 and 4 kind of go hand in hand here. Cost and quality are now product decisions, and trust and failure modes are totally different. Remember those tokens we talked about? Well, every AI response costs money in tokens, and usually the smarter the model, the slower and more expensive it is. That is a massive product trade-off. Plus, invisible failures, like a really confident hallucination, can absolutely wreck your brand's trust. Think about the Klarna case study, where they used AI to handle 2/3 of their customer service chats. It is so easy to just measure the cost savings of replacing that workflow while completely ignoring the quality of the outputs. You have to design for graceful failure. You have to be honest with the user when the AI simply doesn't know the answer. All right, final stretch, section 5, the future of AI and tracking durable trends. Here is where the puck is skating. We are quickly moving from reactive chatbots to proactive agents that can actually execute tasks for us. AI is also becoming multimodal by default, meaning it handles text, image, audio, and video all simultaneously, not just one medium at a time. We're seeing a huge push for personalization and memory, where the AI actually retains context about you over time instead of waking up with amnesia every single session. And finally, AI is becoming ambient. It's being quietly embedded right inside the tools you already use every day, like your spreadsheets and your email clients. It's acting as an invisible helper rather than some standalone website you have to actively go visit. But here is the absolute most important trend of all: reliability over raw capability. as we've seen with companies like Klarna and Duolingo, who heavily test their AI prompts behind the scenes before ever showing them to a user. The products that actually survive this hype cycle, they aren't the ones with the flashiest, craziest tech demos. The winners are the ones that get quality and trust right. Prioritizing a reliable, safe, and trustworthy user experience is, for sure, the ultimate deciding factor for AI products moving forward. Which brings us to our final, somewhat provocative thought. Listen, AI is not magic. It is a massive, structural shift in exactly how we interact with technology. But with all this noise out there, you really have to ask yourself, are you evaluating AI just for the hype? Or are you building for real value and trust? I invite you to take this mental model we've built today, apply it to your own business, and start finding the genuine opportunities that are hidden right beneath the buzzwords.